entrepreneurs and professionals of Tampa Bay. Welcome to your hour for getting the information, the tools, and the connections for elevating your business. Welcome to Getting the Edge with Kelly Wilson. And here's your host, Kelly Wilson.
Welcome to Getting the Edge. I'm your host, Kelly Wilson. Thank you so much for being with us. I've had some great couple weeks off, so I'm really energized and happy to be back. Getting the Edge is brought to you by Edge Media Hub. You can check out more information about the business community and media solutions that we offer at edgemediahub.com. I encourage you to look into our annual partnerships. We have multiple levels for a little bit of something for everybody, for all budgets. And I think right now, again, community is still more important than ever. And we're more than happy to help and promote. And there's all kinds of fabulous benefits. So check them all out on our website. You can also watch all of the shows from all of the years and fast forward and rewind. And there's just so much, hours and hours of content and positivity and great messages and stories of, success and failure and trials and tribulations. I have been a firm believer for a long time that we can learn so much from each other. I talk a lot, but I've learned to stop and at times and listen, because I already know what I have to say half the time, most of the time. But it's great to learn from others and get their perspectives and just look at the world through different lenses. So again, so happy to be here. Thank you to our annual Platinum partners. All Trust Insurance, your trusted employee benefits partner, Pilot Bank, Visit Tampa Bay, and USF Movement College of Business. We wouldn't be here without you, so thank you so much. I am super excited, as always. I think I always say that. Each show is it's so great. I've had the pleasure of having conversations and had the pleasure of interviewing him a year or so ago. So it's great to have him in the studio with us. So welcome, Roger Germann, President and CEO of the Florida Aquarium. Welcome.
Thank you, Kelly. It's great to be here.
Thank
and you're
you.
right. We've got a chance to talk a little bit over the last year or two, and now to spend a little time together. I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's great, to get I bring you into the booth and sit you, and I've got you 56 minutes, and you have to sit there and answer everything. No, and I said I was going to joke with him about his answers in the magazine. We were going to compare, right? Make sure.
We are. We'll be like the Great Karnak, right?
Right.
Do I still get it? Right.
Yeah. No. So thank you so much for all that you have done. And being a part of Edge, but and also for the Tampa community and the aquarium is a wonderful family. It's like a hub, a center in a sense of where community can go and just get out of what's going on maybe and just escape into the water of
Well, thank you. I mean, look, the aquarium just turned 26. It's been here 26 years, and as you said, it's this cultural gem that we have here in Tampa and Tampa Bay. We're the Florida Aquarium, and I like to bring that up because all of the folks, all of our edgies, so to speak, who are looking for something to do, come on to the Florida Aquarium. We just happen to be located in downtown Tampa, but it's a fun place to go. We want to be that cool scientist that you have fun, you learn, inspire some action to protect wildlife and in our environment, and on the same token, as you said, especially during this last year, we value being a respite from all of life's trials and tribulations, to be able just to come unplug for that hour, 2 hours,
escape and
get up with nature. We all love, who doesn't love nature and animals?
It makes you feel good. It really does. I had the pleasure of taking my little, I call them my favorite little people, my grandchildren. I can't even think, I guess it was right before the holidays last year, but we had a great time, and it was just a wonderful, and it was during everything, so you were extremely careful, but it was limited at the time of who could be there, so you felt better, and especially it kind of brought back memories, because as they're running around, you're like, oh my goodness, wipe your hands, where's the sanitizer, but you did have it all around. We had a great experience, and then we were able to do the dolphin cruise as well, and it was just to be out on the water and to just forget about everything else that you might be worrying about at that time and just enjoy being mindful of the moment. Sure. It was a great day. Yeah.
Well, good. And your words right there is exactly why we exist. What's our purpose, right? And to be able to know that, you which no one would think you're a grandma, but the fact that you were able to bring your grandkids in and have that experience, those are moments you can't get back, right?
Yeah.
And we pride ourselves on that.
Yeah.
So every visit we want to make that the most memorable visit that anyone can have, and it's exciting.
It's crazy. It'll be that one year that we'll look back on all the photos when you did things and everyone was in a mask. Because it just takes away from the smiles. I mean, you can still see in their eyes, but it is, we were just talking before the show started about, how before we know it, life will be back, and things will, a couple years, because we forget so quickly, I think, difficult times that we go through as we start to recover, and then before you know it, but those masks and all of those photos, will be a constant reminder. That's even as I think we walked into the aquarium, they want to take your photo, but you're in a mask, and but everywhere, you go like that, it's been like that. Oh my God, the photos just aren't. I've got enough mask photos. I'm good.
Yeah.
But
well, it's one of those things that you and I have chatted about, and I know you have always asked me, like, what's those mantras that you have?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like the no problems, only solutions, right? That's what, that's my parents instilled in me, and it's stuck with, my kids are probably tired of me hearing it, my staff probably, but it is. And so when I think to your point of the mask, there's probably a couple things. One is, it's a timestamp in our lifetime, and embrace it for the moment, because we survived it. We're a resilient people, right? And so for me, that's a moment that I know I will probably look back and go, there's all those times I didn't like it, but man, it showed we can accomplish something.
Absolutely.
And we can get through it, right? And then the second piece of that is what I look at from the aquarium standpoint is, what do those masks represent? And one of the unique things through COVID was we were able to reconnect with our local audience. Because when you grow up in places where you either have the beach, you take it for granted, or the Florida Aquarium, oh, I'll go next week, and then you don't go. 5, 6, 7, 10 years go by. So what was really, really nice is that mask allowed a lot of our local folks to reconnect with the Florida Aquarium, and it was fantastic.
Well, and I had prior health conditions. I had a lung disease when I was a teen. So, I was very careful and have been, quite, lived in a cave and just, it's great to get out and about. And even those little times being at the aquarium, because for almost a year, we limited everything that we did, and I was extra careful, and probably I drove my family crazy. I was probably overly careful, but I didn't want to take any chances. So as much as I do not like the mask, I wore it, and I think to me too, it's a matter of respect for others.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is a sense of community. I think that was really what we looked at as well. Science said certain things, but also to your point, that sense of community. How do we encourage people to get out and about? But respect, you're exactly right.
So I just wanted to make sure I was stressing I don't like them, and I do not, but it's respect. I'll wear it whenever I need it to.
Absolutely. Well, and things are changing now too, right? So now obviously organizations like ours, public-facing organizations, are going to need to morph. We're going to need to make sure we align with science, and and I think that even what you're hearing over the last couple days and weeks is kind of getting back to that pre-pandemic behaviors. And so how does the aquarium adjust? And we will, but
we had mentioned this briefly, and so with the and I want to go back to your mantra, because I think that's important too, but with the law that was just passed, what does that mean that we're not able then to ask the visitors? So let's just say, for example, those that come to the aquarium, you're not able to ask or have proof that they've been vaccinated. So and then they're talking about not wearing masks if you are vaccinated, and then if you're not, vice versa. But if you're not able to ask if they have, how would you even know if they have or not?
Yeah, so this
because people tend not to be truthful.
Right. Well, so this is the interesting dilemma that I think has probably played itself out without kind of what I would say maybe a kind of a national response to certain things. And so you're right. So the CDC has given guidance, and so it's what all of our organizations like the Florida Aquarium are dealing with. So they've given guidance, and they've said, hey, you have some different ways that you can live your life if you're vaccinated or not. And so organizations like ours, I think, are going to continue to have to err on the side of being conservative, because here in the state of Florida, as you said, we cannot ask patrons and guests for proof.
But as the leadership of the ship, the leader of the ship, you have to make sure that your staff and your guests are protected.
Yeah, that's the ultimate. So, which means in order to do that, you still are going to have to. Organizations like ours are still going to have to require masks
because that is the authority you're able to do. So then it almost, because of what he did, and I'm staying neutral. I'm neutral, but it then almost is it doesn't give any benefit to those vaccinated. You know,
Yeah.
it just takes that away from
Yeah, it makes it
those
look,
that have. So I just don't understand that at all.
Well, look, here's the interesting thing, because my previous life prior to being in the aquarium world was in government and politics up in Chicago and Illinois. So I understand. There are a lot of well-intentioned folks who believe, elected officials who are doing really, really good work, and they're trying to make the best choices that they can. Sometimes some of those choices, whether it's based on speed or intention, have the unintentional consequences. And so I think the biggest thing that I'll say for us, and not to get here, but for us, is that even when we make a decision at the Florida Aquarium, as a leader, we have to be willing to say, how do I make either other adjustments, or oops, I didn't know that was going to happen. Let me pull something back. And I wish we saw more of that just in politics and public service
and
in
a little
general.
more of just being inquisitive of what the community thinks. It seems like so many times bills are they're passed so quickly. It's like, well, who did you talk to see who wanted that?
Yeah.
Is that a representation of the people or power?
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes, and not in any particular candidate, and we are not going political.
No.
It's just anyway, it's just an interesting fact. Okay, I don't know. It's just puzzling, but. Mantras.
It's a world we'll continue to navigate.
Yeah. So I love your mantra. And as I was doing the interview, it was, even as no problem, no solution, no problem,
Yeah.
no solution. It's like, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that I think
I love it.
right, so no problems, only solutions.
That's it.
I think the key is that what people sometimes forget is there are problems. And so the point of that mantra is, I recognize there are problems. There are problems in my life. There are problems all around. But what are the solutions, and how do we get through them? And so that's been just a long time mantra that
that was
I
a good one
taught.
that your parents instilled in you.
It's worked out so well, for us and our organization. I think more recently, the other thing that I would add to a lot of folks is, don't sweat the small stuff. That's a new one where, I've kind of talked about it, but I've seen it more and more, and especially coming through as you and I were chatting, the pandemic, there's all these things, but you have a moment to reflect what's important in your life and do whatever. And sometimes some of these things that seem so big,
Right.
just really aren't. So no problems, only solutions. How do we keep moving forward personally, professionally, and just back off on some of the small stuff? Life's still short.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your positivity. When you think about it, your parents telling you that, it already had set your brain to not be stuck on a problem. Instead, you were automatically trained to look for solutions. Prior to it being a problem in a sense. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
it's a problem, but it's not really a problem until you can find the solution. But that knowing that young, at an early age is, I would say, quite beneficial, because, like I said, your brain is automatically trained. So.
Well, it helps.
And then that spreads, to everyone that you've led, and they grasp that same, mentality. So
It's definitely worked on the home front. I have two small kids, and if something were to happen, and a baseball strikeout or something on this line in
Right.
theater, just remember, right? And then the other pieces in work. And I think that has shown at the Florida Aquarium. I've been there almost 4 years now, or literally coming up on the 4th year, and we've done so much to actively fulfill our mission and take the gift that we were given when I walked in the door and keep evolving to the next level. And part of that is, again, we're in a world that's very dynamic, that throws things your way multiple times. But let's focus on the solutions. Let's focus on where we're going. Have that North Star. Why do we do what we do? Why do we have purpose? And if you're going to have that purpose, then you're going to focus on solutions, and it's worked well for the Florida Aquarium.
Yeah, and I found true that the more you are kind of tied to your purpose, the more intensified your search for the solutions are, or because it engages you.
Yeah.
I kind of refer to it as grit. It's when the grit kicks in, and it really it continues to drive you forward.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you're exactly right. And so, to give an example, we have roughly 250 employees at the Florida Aquarium. And to your point, when everybody feels that, they understand that, not only does it mean that when a problem happens, people come with a solution but it also spurs innovation at every level too, right?
Right.
So it is that, it's you could be a ticket taker, and if you're thinking, you're going, hey, no problems, only solutions, and you see a little weird thing, you figure it out, and so maybe it creates innovation. Having to deal with things like online tickets, which are more important for us now than they were before. We were much more of a walk-up transactional, but you're seeing it across the board, which again, you have purpose for a mission like Florida Aquarium, right? Save wildlife from extinction, but you now have purpose of being part of a family and an organization that allows you to thrive and bring those ideas. So,
well, and I just think, it is a wonderful thing when you have leadership like yourself, that has these mantras, that are personalized within them, but then also that just have, where you truly want to lead and empower others. It's wonderful to see. We have so much of that leadership in Tampa Bay, but it's so like almost opposite of what as a child you see that portrayed in shows or anything else. It almost was showed weakness as being young. To be engaging in that way. But I love that we're in a time and space where we're able as leaders to show some vulnerability and empower others. You're not worried that they're going to come and take you want them to someday want your place,
Absolutely.
So it's a great thing.
Yeah, I think where our staff feel uncomfortable at moments, although most of them are over it now, is when I ask them, where do you want to go? Who do you want to be? Do you want my job? And that's when the uncomfortableness comes in, and they're like,
because that's part of your story. Because that's what and that is so powerful for them. It really is.
And I think because one of the disconnects that usually happens with, I believe, I'll call them supervisors, just more in general, right? Is the reality of it is that they don't we oftentimes don't understand where people want to go and what their comfort level is. In some cases, we want to push an employee, a staff member. And if you have a conversation, somebody may say, this is my career.
Right.
I don't want to go any farther. But we push, and then we get frustrated, right? So you want to know where they're at. And in other cases where you have frustration, where people may not see an opportunity, but if we don't understand where they want to go, are there ways to get them to that opportunity? Yeah. I think the biggest thing that most of us probably have to deal with is, and you brought up the no problem solution, but I'm hoping that the new group of leaders that come up kind of embrace it, because I hope I'm not the last generation of leaders who kind of were still old school, because it is about positivity. It is about moving forward, finding solutions and innovation. What we see more and more, unfortunately, through social media and other things, is more of the tear down, right? It's instead of the old dream of lifting up, right?
That's why it's so important right now that our messages are heard, that our voices are heard. And goodness, don't get me going on that, because yes, that I totally agree, and that's a problem, and that we can't let that get away. I mean, that because, and I am hopeful that so many of the younger, they're I don't know, I think sometimes you might get clouded, but if they'll remember that, because I mean it's. They want that too. They were brought up in part of that. I mean, you can't just take that away. Maybe if they didn't know it, they didn't know it. Kind of like us, when we were younger. I mean, we that was normal, right? But it's not normal anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we can't let anybody take that from us.
I agree.
Well, let's talk about you growing up, and you did have an amazing opportunity at the Chicago Aquarium, right? That we talked about. So, but where are you originally from?
So I'm originally from the southwest side of Chicago. So blue collar, hard scrabble. Mom was a public school teacher. Dad worked for the railroad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And, growing up in the Midwest is, being next door in Indianapolis, I mean, it is a great set of ethics and just something about that type of upbringing.
No, I agree.
Or values, maybe.
No, I agree. You have so what's always been unique about Chicago, right? You have the Midwestern values that play themselves out, and then you have the number 3, largest city, in the country. So it has that kind of international / cosmopolitan feel to it. But it's still divided up into those pockets. And so when I say proudly, I am from the southwest side of the city of Chicago, those who grew up there would know, again, it's that hard scrabble, blue collar, not to get you're like the Reagan Democrat, you're just like this let's go, work ethic. I mean, it's, as much as I
Roll
went
your
to
sleeves
school,
up and-
absolutely. I mean, my first job probably was, humping stone for, my buddy's, construction company at like 13 years old, in between like football practice, baseball practice, and things like that. But you just learn that work ethic.
Yeah.
And it was great. So
Yeah.
we're very blessed.
And again, it instills great, because you need that, as you pursue and build your career and find your own way. And it sounds like they encourage that as well. Did you think you'd stay in Chicago, or did you maybe see yourself living somewhere else?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard to leave a big city that is so vibrant like Chicago, and the fact that when you're entrenched in, kind of everything that's happening there, in Chicago. So the point was, did I ever like plan or see myself? Although I did for nearly a year spend some time in Los Angeles. So my career, I came out of, just a side note. So I go through school, and I started off in television. Believe it or not, I started off working at the ABC affiliate in Chicago. My very first job was we were through an internship at the time was working even with Michael Jordan on a TV show before they won any championship. So it was super cool. So you got TV, go out to Hollywood, try to follow that.
I don't think that's in the magazine.
No, it might not
Michael
be.
Jordan. When did you? That's a great opportunity
It was
too.
cool. Well, it was cool, and those are some of those life lessons too,
Right.
right? So so here I'm this young, 20-year-old doing my internship at the number 3, the top TV station at the number 3 market in the country, and the exposure I had to opportunities and listening and having people, tell you stories. I mean, there's values that I have today that I learned in television. There's values I had today for hearing a guy like Michael, just talk, or even just, remind, people of celebrity and hard work and things that happen, right?
Right.
And then from there, it's, spent a little time in government and politics, and in 2000 went to the Shedd Aquarium. And
But you were in communications.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
How did that? So where did you go after the ABC station or the affiliate or?
Yeah, so moved out to LA, spent a little time out there.
And with the station as well?
No, so that's mostly like everybody's kind of Hollywood dream. Like, let's go out there, let's see what we can do. And there were several folks from the Chicago facility affiliate who were working in Century City, so I just knocked on doors. The reality is I was a landscaper for about a year, because it's like I had to pay my bills and do whatever. But you were the Hollywood dream, where you're knocking on doors. You just tried to get that job, and eventually I just went back to Chicago and settled back in with the TV station, but then moved over into more public relations and made a move really into government and then the political side.
So
of government.
what led you to that piece of it, more the government? Were you looking for a change, or was it just?
No, part of it's opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the nitty gritty part of it, Disney had bought out all the Cap Cities ABC affiliates at that time. So when you're bought out, obviously, and you've been in the business for a while, I was kind of looking at like, well, I was kind of the last kid in, probably the first one to go when they restructure and resize, and let's always stay ahead of the game. I think that's one of the things that from a career standpoint, no matter what it is, I've always wanted to be in control as much as I can of my outcomes and my destiny. Don't wait for something to happen. Keep your eyes on the horizon. And if you think again of a lateral career, communications degree with a minor in poli sci, working in television, go into politics and government, and then, oh, by the way, many years later, you're a CEO of an aquarium that is about saving wildlife. How do you get there, right? But it's really I've always wanted to manage my own brand and stay one step ahead and not let somebody else dictate, what my outcomes could be.
Your incoming and your exits and right.
Oh my gosh, totally. I mean, I remember at one point when I first was getting out of college, I wanted to go work in sports, and I tried to help some of my buddies who played D1. But I was going to be their agent. I'm 20 years old and do it. So you do all these, and there was a moment where I took all of the rejection letters and I just taped them on my door, it wasn't oh woe is me. It was okay, because the next one that comes in is going to be somebody, right? Is going to do. And so it was a motivator at the end of the day. But if I had just focused on that, or listened to somebody else, or let somebody else dictate, we don't think you're right for this organization, I don't know where I would have been.
Yeah.
For me, it was predict, try to control.
And believe in you.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's ultimately what it was. Or you wouldn't be where you are, because all the rejection letters and, how many times people told me no, and then I'm crazy, and that this would never happen and I'd never be here all these years later. And,
Absolutely.
but I think that that refusal of not willing to give up on what I felt inside, to be true. And, so it's very difficult to, and I think that it is difficult for many to be able to, because we have responsibilities and spouses and parents and everybody that thinks they know what is best.
Sure.
So
well,
it's tough.
And to build on that though, I guess this would go to how do we keep positivity and make things happen, which is I think the biggest concern for most of us would again be the use of social media at that point too, because you're exactly right. I can get a physical letter in the mail of a rejection, right? I can somebody might say something at school or do whatever, but now you have all of these influences across the board, and it's just that's why no problems, only solutions.
Yeah.
Stay positive. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't let somebody else define you. You like you said, you knew who you were. And you've pursued that. I know who I am, you'll pursue that. And I think the sky's the limit.
I agree. It's so funny. My daughter's going to laugh at me, but the Divergent movie, that's one of our favorites in that series. But at one point, the guy says to her, he says, everyone else, when they get scared, like they do, they act out. They just do these, they're scared and they make bad decisions But with this girl, it fueled her, it empowered her, it made her tougher, and I'm like, because it does. I think once you start fighting for what you believe in, then you don't let fear hold you back at all. You're challenged.
No, I agree, and life isn't easy.
It's not.
What's so interesting, probably for you and I, and many others, like. At the time, you think these are all these cliches that your parents probably said, right? Or somebody said, oh, life's, full of challenge. You go through all of these, and if you compartmentalize them in cliches and then you move on, you kind of forget. But there's a lot of times, I'm sure you, and I know I have, where I'm like, yeah, it's not easy. So I've never gone, well, maybe positive. I've never said it's easy. I've never, we're coming out of the pandemic at times, and, while here, there are all the folks who are stressed and things like that. And I have to keep that positive image, and try to keep the mission going forward while still being empathetic and vulnerable, right? But at the end of the day, like I go home and I'm equally as stressed. I may not show it, but
it's how you react to it. It's like that quote, life is about 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it.
Yes.
Right? And I think, life is hard. Unfortunately, I feel like most of us, even myself, we make it harder than it needs to be.
Right.
And we do it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Just by our worry and our constant, that's where, the guys are joking with me about meditation, but that's where that, it can be so great because it just pauses you for a moment and stops. And okay, I don't watch movies that often, but I'm going to talk about another one, the Eat, Pray, Love movie. And she goes to this retreat, right? And she's looking for meditation and how to control her mind. And then he calls her groceries because she's got so much baggage. This other American that she sees there, and she's trying to meditate and she can't. She's thinking about it. And he pulled her aside and he said, groceries, if you can't, take control or get control of what's up here, he's like, you want to control everything, but you can't control your mind. Yeah. He was like, you will fail every time until you get control of up here. Forget about everything exterior. Focus up here. And, it's weird how little blips from movies or, all through our lives, those sit with you.
It's true.
That was kind of a mission for me to...
No, that's awesome. Well, when we talked earlier, I have the long-standing mantra: no problems, only solutions. But I said the second one, I think I've probably highlighted almost as much as don't sweat the small stuff, and that's exactly what you just referred to. In my mind, we had a conversation. I had a conversation the other day with one of my executives on the and we were talking about an issue that was up. An issue is probably too strong of a word. But one of the things that just hit me, and we started talking, and I said, what's interesting for you, so use Jim Collins for the moment. Mm-hmm. I said, what's interesting is, to us at the moment, our conversation really is about the difference from like that good or very good to great. There are organizations out there, unlike, that are not like us, that, have had to do drastic cuts, that are trying to figure out how to, feed their animals or pay their staff, keep the lights on. we're not even there. And so that perspective piece was almost like, this was let me call you after hours, let's talk through this. And it just hits you like, oh my gosh, it's like tinkering on the edges. And yet for us, because we were performing at a high level, it could seem bigger than it is. And so that is really, to that point, is the step back. And I think collectively, that'll, our focus for the next year, not only delivering on our mission, but our focus internally is going to be about kind of the perspective, don't sweat the small stuff, and shift over to put more into the mental and emotional wellness of our staff. We've done some pretty cool things, I think, to support staff wellness, but we're gonna have to pay more attention to that, because it's not just about what do I get paid, or what are my hours, or what do I do. I think organizations that are gonna keep thriving are going to pay close attention to that. Not sweat the small stuff, invest in your staff, but the holistic part of the well-being.
Yeah, it's I'm going to push one of my favorite sponsors or partners right now, but All Trust Insurance. I've seen and we kicked out and on their behalf or our behalf, because it was great information. But they are an employee benefits partner. But I didn't really understand it when we first started working with them. But I've learned so much more. But they actually invested in a mindfulness app, for their employees and for all of their teams. But it's just the solutions and different things that they've implemented to do just that. Because if we don't focus on, I'm going to have to connect you just in case there might be some relationship there. But it's great to see organizations pushing, because not everybody snaps back into place at the same speed. Yes, we talked about the control we might be able to have on our minds, but I tell you what, it took me years to get there. I mean, in fact, you're always a work in progress, but I mean, it's tough. So, it's being sensitive in some way to their feelings and making them feel, valued and that it matters.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And I think
if you want to keep them, if you want good people, it's, and you have to be good to them.
Yeah, and for us, what's really important is what we find, especially in the nonprofit sector, but also, at a mission-based, purpose-driven organization where, our goal is to save wildlife from extinction. Right. And we do it in multiple ways, whether it's through a visit, right? Whether
I wanted
it's
to
through
talk
actual
about that
science
as
and
well.
Research, education, all of the above. But for us to be able to deliver on that, we need a very healthy, strong, robust, staff who, are willing to do what it takes to save wildlife, because it might sound easy on paper, but it is a heavy lift. Yeah, well, it's a heavy burden.
And their attitudes and their emotions portray to the rest of the team, each individual and the guests that come in and the animals that are there. Yeah. Creating I would think I can see, I guess, I think it's critical in every type of industry organization, but when you're dealing with multiple, just animals and different, different levels of people or beings.
And that mission, right? So that mission is big. It sounds simple, but it is big. I mean, look, I'm 52, and I've been in the business since 2000, and there's been too many animals that have gone extinct in my lifetime, let alone my career, just from 2000 to here in the last 21 years. I mean, and I think when people don't think like extinction's forever, right? That's pretty crazy.
And you're a tourist, aren't you?
I am.
I knew that. I knew it. Yeah, me too. What is at risk? Like, obviously, we talk about the manatees, right? No,
yeah.
And are there other what?
So our focus, our big focus here at the Florida Aquarium is in a couple areas, but one of our biggest focuses is coral reefs. And so what happens is coral reefs are really considered the rainforest of the sea. And right here in Florida, even though it's a little bit farther south, there's something called the Florida Reef Track. It runs from about Fort Lauderdale down to the Dry Tortugas. What in essence is, it's really North America's Great Barrier Reef. Now we can kind of think through it a little more. We're here in Tampa, in the Tampa Bay region. Maybe people in the other part of the country don't see it as like, oh, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. Like, no, we have the exact same thing here. But there's a couple of things that are at play. One is, obviously there's a tourism economy that is based on that, and just the Keys alone is, upwards of $8 billion worth of a tourism economy. But being the rainforest of the sea, many of the animals and wildlife and proteins and all of the above that we see here, that we take advantage of in the Tampa Bay region, have some connection. Some animals spend their time going down to the, the coral reefs, the Florida Reef Track at some point in their life, born, migrate back and forth. So to your point, the manatees that are here, or the dolphins that are here, or the sea turtles probably have some connection. Now, if that rainforest, like many things, collapses, and it's, it's on the verge of collapsing without organizations like ours stepping up, that will have an adverse effect not only on the wildlife but our quality of life, because we interact with nature way more than we think,
right.
especially here in Florida.
Right. No, I agree. I was going to say, ask why is it, what is, causing it to collapse? And then, my first question when you started saying this was, the oil digging, and does that have any, does that interfere with the barrier reef?
So there's a whole series of things. I mean, the biggest thing for the Florida Reef Track are three things. One is, that we do have to talk about climate change. We do have to talk about, sea levels, being warmer. And what happens is coral is an animal. A lot of people don't realize that's an animal, but the way it works off with plants. And so when water temperatures are warmer, animals can't adapt as fast and other things happen. Another one is water quality. And just making sure that, like you want to put good food in your body, right. you want water quality. And then the third, which is something that has been a little more recent, has been there's a disease that has an outbreak that's down there that is attacking a lot of coral. So we're trying to fight multiple levels. You're trying to enact certain policies to, improve the quality of the water and the temperature as much as you can. You're trying to deal with the disease, and then how do you do restoration work? What I will give, and we talked a little bit politics earlier, what I will give, the governor and this current legislature, some credit is they have taken that challenge on. They have recognized that the economy and the environment are not mutually exclusive, and I applaud them for that. I mean, as an organization like ours, we are seeing things change in order to protect and preserve our unique environment that is so unique to Florida, which is great. So there is hope. Again, the positive side.
Right.
Matter of fact, I was in New York at one point meeting with a large donor, and they said we were one of the first organizations to come in that was looking for funding for coral work that actually talked about hope. Everybody comes in and says, oh, if you don't give, the thing's gonna crash, the thing's gonna crash. I look and go, we're having major breakthroughs in science. The Florida Aquarium has had 2 breakthroughs in the last 2 years that have never been done in the history of the world before, right here in Tampa Bay, right?
Oh,
so
wow.
I walk in there and go, as long as we can keep having those breakthroughs and your investments work, there is hope to save this reef.
And with your passion and positivity, right, no doubt. It's, wow, that just empowered, like I was worried there for a minute, but you just took all that away. I appreciate that, because at first, I mean, it's great to know that we have, amazing organizations, that are geared towards specific causes, and this being one important one.
And that worry should be there, right? So, but it's a healthy worry. I think that's right. That's the splitting of.
But knowing someone's handling,
and then how do you find organizations like ours either to support? How do you make changes in your own, people's own behaviors and actions just to have? Because again, we're so connected.
Yeah, they were briefly on the news. I always have it on, but I'm never really. In fact, I'll say something. I'll tell my daughter, "Will you look this up?" Because you're so engaged in something else. But I'll hear bits and pieces. But they were talking about the mask, people just, obviously throwing things out, and they were digging out all the masks. I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of masks in our bay. And, just like, how did they end up there? I don't think people deliberately put them in the water,
right.
Maybe with wind or who knows, our breezes take it, that it was astonishing to think that now, on top of everything else, that it was, kind of, garbaging, building up, and now we have masks on top of it.
Well, it's interesting, right? So again, in the positivity side, I'm sure that you, myself, sometimes you can give me
now we're aware
of the Pollyanna piece, right? But so if you think about, right, so pre-pandemic organizations like ours are working very hard to do what we need to do. So for instance, here, in the Tampa Bay region, there was a lot of movement for things like skip the straw, get rid of the single-use plastic. Everybody was starting to make some really good headway. And then the pandemic comes out. Now, for safety reasons and human health reasons, many of us had to go back. I mean, the world had to kind of go back to, can't touch this, can't touch that. So, now here's a plastic spoon again, and here it's wrapped, and you're, get the masks to your point. So you talk about all those. But there's a couple things that were at play. One is, especially in the early times, we saw nature bounce back because people weren't driving cars and do whatever. So there was a net positive still there in many ways. You know, the air got cleaner, the animals started returning to places that they never were before. So
like
keep
it
that
needed to
positive
happen
going.
in some way.
What's
I
that?
mean, like that it needed to happen in
It
some way
did.
for some type of, I was listening, and they were talking about a conservation or something, Lakeland area, but that the animals that had been gone, like they're all back again.
Yeah.
Like that, and people don't realize, that, I don't know. They were here before. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're all here at the same time. But anyway, I mean, but you have to share space, and I guess but it's great to see that.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that's the next piece, right? Now, how do we come out of this so that we have the right? Keep that, exactly right. But the other side, I think, to your masks was, that's a tougher thing for most of us in the conservation world, right? Because we saw, we had to have the use of more single-use plastic or have, these masks that are showing up. But on the same token, there's organizations like ours, there's corporations, there's community groups, there's Boy Scouts, there's Girl Scouts. They're getting out there and cleaning up. And so get out, right, recognize that nature has come back, recognize that, again, there's this problem that we have, but what are we going to do to solve it? Because it's still a one-time problem, right? Once masks eventually go away at the level that they are, you're not going to have to deal with it. So clean up what we have. Hopefully people pay a little more attention, but you're going to be on the good side if we can get after this. And I hope people remember that.
And then how do we keep things that way with with nature back and with some type of, we were able to kind of take some steps back maybe as far as maybe with some damage that we've done maybe. So how do we keep that and go forward?
I think the biggest thing that we struggle with, I think, in the conservation world, I mean, I'm just talking about, across, America and, globally and do whatever, is conservation oftentimes is somebody else is going to do it. I believe, right? I believe the fact that, okay, you know what, the government's going to figure out either a law or regulation, or, they're just going to recycle, or they're going to do this. They're going to figure out how to clean something up. And then you get these, polarizations where the people clash. So, I mean, to your point, I think the key is, again, taking these last 14 months plus, we slowed down a little bit. Hopefully more people got some perspective. When you're looking for those bright spots of animals returning or getting to see whatever those are, just remember those moments, soak them in, and try to continue it. They're going to be through personal actions, right?
I think the messaging going forward needs to iterate that and to kind of keep taking us back. So as we ramp up, and I'm giving myself ideas, as we ramp up and get and try and go back, just messaging that. Yeah. My brain's going now.
I'll see.
It's because we were just talking about that, how, even you think 9/11, you think anything big that happens in our lives. I mean, unfortunately, obviously, you're always going to have those that had loss, that experienced more, or even the shootings. I mean, just the horrific things that happened in the world. But, unless you're directly affected, you go on and quickly, and it's forgotten so quickly.
Yeah.
So, something. There's got to be something with that, because what is that? Probably 80% of, it's probably the 20 that have some type of, recognition or remembrance, and it's probably the 80, because isn't it always the 80-20? So, but it's probably the 80 that are going to go back to normal and not, I don't know. There's got to be over 20% that have been affected. It's been.
Well, that's that's the thing that's interesting, right? So with the language we're all going to hear right now is, how do we get back to pre-pandemic behaviors, right? But I guess the question would be, an entire world was affected for at least 14 plus months, if not longer, when it's all said and done. That means everyone, to your point, was affected 100%, and it was very long and drawn out, not like a blip of moment in time, even to your point of 9/11, right? So while I think the words are right, how do we get back to pre-pandemic behaviors? But what I hope that we all do, because I know we do this at the aquarium, and I do this at myself, is reflect on what changes I did make during this time, and what are those that you want to carry over. Even for us at the aquarium, we didn't. When we went into the pandemic, we said let's look at our business model. Because what I think what could be easy to do is, okay, on this date we closed our doors, you just shut down. When the time is right, you just reopen everything exactly as normal. And this caused us to really think differently. We said, let's look at our business model. So when we reopen, or as reopening even continues to happen, should we still be doing this? Should we not be doing this? the world has changed. How do you predict where things are going? And so there are some things and programs and events that we're not currently doing, and I don't know if they'll even come back online because we rethought of our business model. And then even from a resource standpoint, it may mean you just shift to another priority as we move forward. So I think that was kind of reprogramming, not just going into, what I like to say is not going into hibernation, right? When this happened, and then you reemerge from hibernation exactly the same.
Right. No.
We should learn from it, and so we use the term, a lot of us internally, is look at the pandemic as like a gaper's delay on the road, right? We were gangbusters at the Florida Aquarium, personally, professionally. We slowed down, but get back, get going again. But when you see that, I think if we all see an accident, and we've all remembered, right? When you get back, even though you get back up to speed, this 55 or 65, to your point, like something's just resonating in your head. And you might say, well, you know what, maybe I'm gonna have two hands on the wheel now because I saw something over here, or whatever it is. So how do we do that as a society? How do we do that as, again, a business in the Florida Aquarium? We're trying to just reinvent a little and learn from the 14 months, not just be like, again, we just awoke and we're going back to exactly what we did.
Because nothing will be like it was, and nor will the people, that are a part of it. What a question that I had, then I want to talk about your anniversary, but the funding, you'd mentioned that you were not having, you were fortunate didn't have to have any cuts. Is that because of your private donors and because of the funding that you have?
Well, it's twofold. Yeah, it's twofold. So one is, so being a nonprofit, earned revenue, right? So ticket sales and what you do at the aquarium really matters for a couple of reasons. One is it helps fund our mission, and two is portions of those go to our conservation programs. But yes, we also as a nonprofit rely on the generosity of donors and philanthropy, and so we've been able to grow that, during this time.
That's great.
But for us, it was important to remind people that you're investing in our mission and moving forward. It was never, to your point about, here's something we can't do or can't keep up.
Right.
We were thankfully in a really wonderful place to be able to kind of take the COVID punch, so to speak, in many ways. It doesn't mean we are better than anybody else, but we're just in a little better position, I think, than some. Yeah. So how do we keep moving forward? And we're very blessed by donors and those who come and visit our aquarium.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so again, happy anniversary, 26 years. That's something to celebrate. And so yes, if you have not yet read, this was the not-for-profit issue. This launched right before COVID happened. It was February was our launch. But if you haven't yet, check it out. You can read Roger's article. All the digital versions are online. But in there, we talk about your anniversary. And you were planning all of these amazing things at the aquarium. And a month later, everything shuts down. So I can imagine that was tough, because you did have, a lot of plans in the works. But you just, you make the best of it. And so, you can do all of that rolling out. So that must have been 25 years then.
Yeah.
I must have had.
No, you're exactly right. So you're exactly right. This was leading up to a really great year. So March 31st of 2020 was going to be the big year-long 25th anniversary celebration.
Right.
The good news is that when you think of the 25 years, we've weathered everything from Y2K to to 9/11 to the recession in 08 and 09. I think institutionally we're in a good place, and so this is another one of those little just kind of pauses for the moment. But it would have been nice to celebrate a little bit of 25 at the level that we wanted. Yeah. However, being so mission focused. We know what we accomplished in 25 years, but we don't stop. And so year 26 coming out of this, what are we going to do for the next 25 plus years, and how are we going to make a difference at the end of the day?
I just thought of something, the fact that it was your 25th anniversary and the fact that COVID came, but you were on the upper end of things. You were able to go past it. It's kind of like a celebration of celebrating that. It happened during, maybe maybe that's like, iconic, ironic, I don't know, something like that. But it means something maybe, you'll be here for, 25 even more and beyond. So
yeah, I think that's key. Recognizing where we're at, to your point, in this point of time. We know colleagues across the country and even around the world that we talk to are still struggling, trying to keep doors open. We're not in that position. And the other piece that what we did is, again, no problems, only solutions. So things like we couldn't hold some of our biggest fundraisers that we normally have during that time. But how do you make do, right? And so we kicked off a campaign for 25 for 25, and people rose to the occasion. You talk about masks, like, oh my gosh, you gotta take the picture with the mask. We had 25th anniversary masks that maybe we wouldn't have had, right?
Wow, okay.
So many of those folks who have those photos of their day at the Florida Aquarium, it says 25. So we made things work, right?
That's great.
And to be able to still celebrate our 25th anniversary. And really, as I said earlier, like really reconnect with our locals. Yeah, that I think was the biggest thing, because I think most people who grew up here don't even realize we were 25 years old.
Right.
And like, oh my goodness, right?
Connecting with the locals, right? No, it's I think, and we're all so busy, that it's great to be reminded of opportunities, and not even just for family, even whether you're solo or just with your spouse or or partner. It's just a great. Again, it's a break from reality. It gives you a moment. It forces you to be mindful.
Yeah, and connect with nature. In 2015, I think the United Nations declared that more people, for the first time in the history of humankind, live in urban settings than in rural settings. So that's one of those stats that kind of sticks with me, and just making sure, again, we're always delivering on our mission, and one of those is to connect with nature. And so, to your point, whether you're in a stroller and you get a chance to like see a fish go by, or you're a shorty and you run through the splash pad, or an adult above 21 years old and you want a refreshing beverage, sitting along the
stingray
port,
the little ones were in fact drenched. The whole shirt was drenched because they were trying to get in, but they were just they wouldn't give up till the stingray came by. It's just such a it's been great for me too, because they've kind of reconnected me too with taking a break and pausing and being mindful, and just enjoying these moments, because they go so quick, and tomorrow's not guaranteed. So it's. Tim McGraw, live like you're dying, live like we're dying. I don't know, try to have a different mentality and look at things differently, and try looking at ways through a solution, perspective versus problem. So that's great.
Yeah.
So what's next?
So there's a couple things so number one, we don't stop, right? We need to actively fulfill our mission. So one of our big focuses for the summer of 2021 is to get a new penguin exhibit opened, an outdoor penguin exhibit, because for a long time, not for a long, so since we've been in the penguin conservation space, our penguins have been behind the scenes. So you can come to the Florida Aquarium. You can pay a little extra. Again, those monies go towards conservation programs, but to see our penguins. But we knew it was important to keep the flywheel, so to speak, going, stay fresh. And penguins were one of the top questions, like, where are the penguins? Where are the penguins? And so we kicked off a campaign, and later, somewhere hopefully around the 4th of July, or maybe somewhere within that time frame, we'll open up a new little outdoor penguin exhibit, which we're excited about. People can see penguins, and they are in trouble in South Africa, the ones that we have, and so we want to be able to send staff over once kind of the pandemic's a little more in check, to get on the front lines as well. So penguins, there's always something new that's happening over there. We're going to bring some of our programs back. We've spent time while we were closed figuring things out, like, hey, let's paint that, let's redo this exhibit and this gallery, so it still looks fresh and new. It doesn't look like a 26-year-old building. We're excited. And then again, in the Gapers, it paused a little bit of some of the things we want to do, but we do have our eyes on bigger things. We do have our eyes on the ability to open up our conservation campus down in Apollo Beach. We do have eyes on how do we expand our footprint to bring new experiences, online that can maybe, again, help animals in the wild and help all of us, at the end of the day. So there's more coming.
I don't think everybody realizes everything that goes on behind the scenes. And actually, as I'm writing articles, I'm at about a 950 word count. And, you want to cover the stories, as like when I was doing yours, but it was also difficult because there was so much information about the aquarium that I wanted to include. I had no idea all of the different funding and just searches and, discoveries that you were making. And, I don't think, hopefully we'll help educate, help that. But thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's great to know somebody's, taking care of our
underwater world, underwater neighborhood.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Personalize it. So this is the one of the things I loved in the folks up at the aquarium up in New York. They called kind of the Long Island Sound, everything like the sixth borough. I mean, they gave it a sense,
wow.
right? I look at it here to say, this is the water that we live in, right? That's our underwater neighborhood. That's our that's our connectivity, and there's more there than is, that we realize. And we're happy to play that role that we do. But you're right. I mean, I think even just to give one example to break off for 1 second, which is, we've got, 11,000 animals that are at the Florida Aquarium that we care for every day.
11,000?
Yeah, I mean, and we'll continue to build that up. And my coral enthusiasts will say, well, there's, millions of them because
they count the coral.
They totally, right? So you can go down that road,
well,
which
it's supposed to be alive as well.
It's very true. Hard to qualify one of those. But when you think about it, of just an animal that comes to the Florida Aquarium, we are meticulous, to your point, of behind the scenes of how we either acquire an animal, why we have an animal, and then we care for that animal for its lifetime. And then some animals, I mean, it's interesting because, things like the giant Pacific octopus, I mean, their natural life cycle is like 2 years. So, and then you have others, like some of the sea turtles we rescue, that can be 50 years. So when you make a commitment to care for that animal, you make a commitment for the lifetime of that animal. And so there is purpose to them. And unlike people say, well, do you have an aquarium in your home or I remember when I was a kid, I couldn't keep a goldfish, so I was like, forget it. I'll go work at a place that can keep really cool animals and make it happen. So it's a pretty cool place that I hope people, to your point, take a little bit of a moment and recognize it's not just a fun little attraction in the corner. That it's purpose. It's a cool science. We are very intentional in what we do, and our ultimate goal is to save wildlife from extinction.
Yeah, no, and you make that clear, it's enjoyable talking with you because you have so much passion and it flows, and I think anybody that would hear you would draw them. It's like music that piper that's leading them to the water. So thank you so much for everything you do there and your positivity and just it spreads, and we all need to amplify our voices, I think, and spread that, as people question maybe, if that is good or not. It is good,
Yeah.
You
had said something earlier, just, and I do, right? So I came here 4 years ago from Chicago, and one of the great things that I've seen since being here is that positivity, is that sense of community, is the leadership. And when you go through a public health crisis the way we just did, that showed a lot here in this community. And I would say that even though 4 years doesn't seem like you're a newbie anymore, you're not only am I still a newbie in many ways, but I still have connectivity back to Chicago and the North. And I will say again, there are more leaders in our community that are very positive, like yourself and others. I think this shows that's the Tampa Bay way, and I think that's going to prove.
And it was great, even through my friends and different leaders. They, as you came in, they're like, you need to talk with Roger. So we do spread the love. We're just about out of time. It goes so fast. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. We'll talk more soon. Thank you for being with us today. Check out edgemediahub.com. Find out all about Edge Media, and make sure you check out Station House Barbecue. Never stop dreaming. Talk soon. Thanks. Bye.